She was, of course, in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. We don't need another hero. All we need is Tina. So on Sunday, come on back because we're doing a recap of the Succession series finale. We're going to have the fantastic Dr. Ramani here. She and I are going to have a quick little conversation after the show wraps up Sunday night. Very excited to see what happens. I think cousin Greg is going to come out on top. I texted my husband to that effect at the end of season 3. So I am on record. I think this is going to happen. I could be totally wrong. Who knows? But it's part of the fun because it could go in a lot of different ways. So Sunday night after that airs, we'll have a little video up here for you to watch and enjoy. So come check that out. Dr. Ramani is brilliant and she's an expert on narcissism. And so she has been doing recaps on her own YouTube channel through that perspective. A piece of news that broke, a sad piece of news that broke while we were doing our live stream on Wednesday, and that is the death of Tina Turner. Very, very sad. 83 years old, a stroke, I understand, and some kidney complications.
Yeah, I had not had a chance to dig back into the more updated stories, so I don't know what's happening there. But 83 is a good run.
Yeah, she died at her home in Switzerland. She had lived there for many years. She actually got rid of her U.S. citizenship and became a resident of Switzerland several years ago, and found like decades earlier that, it was just, she enjoyed that life better. She was a bigger star in Europe and was just adored and beloved there, and found that like fame was fleeting in the United States in a way that it was not for her in Europe. Just legendary, of course, as a performer. I mean, just electrifying, so influential, had, a huge comeback in the 80s with the Private Dancer album, and just endured a lot throughout the course of her life, and a survivor of so much abuse and so much pain, to come out on top and really thrive. There was a documentary that we reviewed a couple years ago. It's on HBO Max, or whatever you want to call it these days. We'll talk about Max later on today. It's called Tina, and that's very good. Of course, memorialized by Angela Bassett in What's Love Got to Do with It. She was, of course, in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. We don't need another hero. All we need is Tina.
And Tommy.
Right. Yes, she was in Tommy. That is true.
So.
And I read in one of the obits that she was up for a role in The Color Purple.
Oh, wow.
But did not want to, she said she had lived abuse and did not want to portray it on screen.
Yeah, no, I get it. I thought one of the most interesting things about the documentary was how people, when she makes her comeback, she's back on top, she's topping the charts, and all anybody wants to talk about is Ike and the abuse. And so she writes an entire book about it. She writes her whole life story, I, Tina. It's like, oh, look, here it is. You don't have to ask me about this anymore. It's on paper. You can reference it, and they would still bring it up in interviews. It's like, oh man. Yeah. So anyway, she survived a lot of crap, and came out on top, and did it on her own terms, and so she will be an immortal, I think, in the pantheon of music.
For sure. The Writers Guild strike continues. We are in our 4th week now?
4th or 5th. Important news, by the way, if you're a WGA card-holding member in Los Angeles, Drew Carey will buy you a meal at Bob's Big Boy in Burbank or Swingers in Los Angeles, tip included. Show your card for the duration of the strike. Yes.
Good for you, Drew Carey. That is great. Yeah. So we're seeing now that it's been going on for so long that a lot of productions are being affected by this. And so just this week, 3 different Marvel productions, although Blade may already have been stopped. But this week we learned that Thunderbolts, the Marvel movie Thunderbolts, which is like Yelena and Bucky and Harrison Ford as Thunderbolt Ross and the Steven Yeun and Valentina, all of them, that was supposed to come out in July of 24. And that, who knows? Also, the TV series Wonder Man, which Destin Daniel Cretton was doing with Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. Did you know that?
Wow. I had heard about that, and I'm a big fan of that character in the comics. So, I think the studios have probably already lost more money in delays and whatnot than the guild wanted in the first place, But I think now it just becomes this the pissing contest that these things always have to become.
Another event too, we have the Ted Lasso finale coming next week. There was going to be an event at the Academy where they were going to have like pretty much everyone, the entire cast except for Brett Goldstein, but like everyone's just Jason Sudeikis and Hannah Waddingham, and like name a person on that show that were going to be there to air the finale and do a talk. That has been canceled, understandably. Nobody wants to cross any line. And,
Sure.
Jason Sudeikis has been out there picketing himself. He is, of course, a member of the Writers Guild, besides being a SAG member. And then that's the next thing, is that SAG is negotiating, right? There's also the threat of a SAG strike.
The SAG board has approved to have the membership vote on whether or not they go on strike. And apparently there seems to be there's a lot of overlap between what the Writers Guild is fighting for and what SAG wants. And so it is quite likely that we may see that membership also decide to strike, which would really shut it all down. I mean, there are still a few things that are out there shooting because like the scripts are done and we had them banked, and as long as nobody pickets or people don't cross line, whatever, that we can still get these last few days of the show in. But if SAG strikes, forget it. Like everything stops.
We just don't need an entire city full of out of work actors.
It can't be good.
Right. Like this, we only get a table for brunch anywhere. It's going to be a mess. So I hope that they can all, figure it out, but they are in solidarity, all of these folks, it seems. Max launched. Don't call it HBO Max anymore. It's now just Max. And it was a bit of a cluster off the top. Like I have just found that trying to find stuff on there is not that easy to navigate.
I mean, HBO Max wasn't like a great example of how to work one of those sites. Like they had a very fussy, messy homepage. So I haven't used it a lot. I went and I watched the Donna Summer documentary, which I looked up by spelling.
But that should be like the first thing you see, right? Like that should be one of their main little boxes.
You would think, but
right?
It was not, even though, it just dropped on actual HBO like within the last week. I had heard early on that they had gotten rid of the TCM and like DC tabs, but they were there when I went on. So I guess they fixed that. There was that whole, did we already talk about the creators nonsense?
We did briefly. Yeah. So when it first launched as Max, they were lumping in anybody who worked on the film as creators. And so
writers, directors, and producers. Yeah.
Right. Like on the Raging Bull page, for example, like it's a bunch of people's names. Somewhere in there is Scorsese. Somewhere in there is Paul Schrader.
Yeah. And there are actual contractual things about this. It's like they can't even decide, whatever. It's like, no, the Writers Guild, who is currently striking, it says in their contract that you have to, give them their own line.
Delineate, yes. You and I are also creators. You and me and Scorsese, Paul Schrader. We have so much in common.
Of course.
So they have since changed that. And they phrased the explanation of it in a very felicitous way.
Oopsie.
So that is out there. Have you guys noticed a difference in Max versus HBO Max? Let us know. Are you like less inclined to watch stuff on there? Do you not care? You'll find it.
The fact that they couldn't figure out how to just let people use the HBO Max thing they already had on their TV. Like you basically have to get rid of that and download this new one. And so I'm sure for a lot of people, that's a pain in the ass. It probably moves it way down on the menu if you have like a Roku or an Apple TV.
Yeah.
And it just like, my TV came with buttons for like Netflix and Hulu. I was reading that some people have like an HBO Max button on their remote, which now is worthless.
Oh, right. We won't acknowledge that anymore. Yeah. What is this HBO Max you speak of? So let us know how that is going for you. Netflix has acquired Todd Haynes' film May December, starring Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore.
Yes.
That could be interesting.
I'm excited about it. I don't know a ton about that movie. I've been trying to avoid reading the reviews, but Todd Haynes is one of my favorite living filmmakers. And while Netflix can be a giant pain in the ass, I suspect that a big acquisition out of Cannes means this is going to be one of the movies they actually like put in theaters and really throw their weight behind, as opposed to like Apollo 10.5, which they didn't do squat for. But yeah, I mean, every year there's like a handful of movies. There are Romas and there Don't Look Ups or whatever, that
Power of the Dog,
exactly, that they really like do the traditional legwork to get it to an audience and to get it awards attention. And so I'm hoping that's what they're doing.
We'll review that when it comes out.
Oh, yeah.
And then the Brady Bunch house is on the market. If you have $5.5 million lying around, you too can live in the 5-bed, 5-bath, 50 something hundred square foot house that they shot the exteriors for. So here's the deal with this. It's a house in North Hollywood. It's what the exterior of the Brady Bunch house is. But then like over the last year or so, there's been this whole big HGTV renovation where they made the insides match the outsides. And it's like the Property Brothers and actual members of the Brady Bunch cast all did it. So when you look inside of it, like it's uncanny.
Yeah.
Like it's all the same furniture. It's like the kitty cat poster in the girl's bedroom. All of it's the same. But you are spending $5.5 million to live in North Hollywood, like over $1,000 a square foot. If I had that kind of money, that is not what I would spend it on. But
okay, but it's history. No one is buying the house because they want to live in North Hollywood. You know, the Brady Bunch house is the Brady Bunch house. I watched every second of that show, by the way, when they redid it, and they couldn't do it exactly because like the parameters of the fake house, you couldn't like the house isn't tall enough to accommodate. They had to shave down the number of steps on the staircase for the whole second floor because it wasn't tall. Like there was all these things they had to sort of like fudge a bit and kind of put things out or back or whatever. But yeah, I mean they did go through and like that kitchen has like the orange and green cabinets. There's that. I assume if you buy the house, you do get the horse statue in the living room. I would insist upon that certainly. And I guess the backyard is probably astroturfed. I don't know. I hope somebody like turns it into a museum or something because it's like it's such a weird kitsch artifact at this point. I would like for it to sort of remain as is.
The thing is, like, if you are an actual person who wants to live in the Brady Bunch house with your family, you're going to have fools traipsing through your front yard every single day for the rest of your life. I mean, I have a mom friend who lives in the house that was the exterior for Happy Days.
Oh, wow.
And so she gets that too. People knock on her door. Like, who wants that?
I'm very close to the Nightmare on Elm Street house. So yeah, no, I get it. It does become a thing. And you either have to have a sense of humor about it, or you, like the previous owners of the Brady Bunch house, like change the facade so it doesn't look as much like it did on the show. But yeah, I think by this point, like you pretty much have to understand that you are buying a monument. And, and I don't know how that works in a residential area to like just turn it into a tourist site, but that's really what it should be.
I'm sure the neighbors are going to be thrilled.